Hello, my name is Ursula Housen, and I'm a fisheries biologist in the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's Office of Renewable Energy Programs. In this presentation, I will discuss BOEM's analysis of potential impacts of the Ocean Wind 1 wind farm project on commercial and for-hire recreational fishing. The geographic analysis area in the DEIS is the area where resources may be affected by the proposed project. The boundaries are the same for the analysis of direct impacts from the proposed project and the cumulative analysis. Project construction and installation, operations and maintenance, and conceptual decommissioning could affect port and fishing access, as well as transit and harvesting activities, fishing gear interactions, and target species catch. BOEM anticipates that the adverse impacts of the proposed action on commercial fisheries and for-hire recreational fishing would vary by fishery and fishing operation due to differences in target species abundance in the project area, gear type, and predominant location of fishing activity. BOEM anticipates that the overall impacts on commercial fisheries and for-hire recreational fishing associated with the proposed action, when combined with impacts from ongoing and planned activities, including offshore wind, would be major because some commercial and for-hire recreational fisheries and fishing operations would experience substantial disruptions indefinitely, even with applicant proposed mitigation measures, or APMs. This impact rating is primarily driven by climate change, regulated fishing effort, and the presence of offshore structures. However, given the array of measures available to mitigate impacts of offshore wind projects on commercial fisheries and for-hire recreational fishing, BOEM expects that regulated fishing effort and climate change would continue to be the most important factors affecting the sustainability of commercial and for-hire recreational fisheries in the area. Within the geographic analysis area, there were several factors identified and listed here that could impact commercial and for-hire recreational fishing. For the impact of the proposed action, these factors were evaluated in relation to their impacts to port access, impacts to fishing access, impacts to fishing gear, and impacts to target species catch for construction, operations and maintenance, and decommissioning phases of the proposed action. One way to understand the level of commercial fishing activity that could be impacted is by looking at revenue exposure. Revenue exposure quantifies the dockside value of fish reported as being caught in individual offshore wind project areas by using fishing vessel trip reports for harvest locations and seafood dealer reports for values. It is a starting point to understanding potential economic impact of future offshore wind project development if a harvester opts to no longer fish in the area and cannot recapture that income in a different location. Revenue exposure measures should not be interpreted as measures of economic impact or loss. Projected revenue exposure in this table, Table 3.9-5 in the DEIS, is based on the 12-year analysis period of 2008 to 2019 within the footprint of Ocean Wind 1 wind farm. The data are from the National Marine Fisheries Service Socioeconomic Impacts of Atlantic Offshore Wind Development webpage. While all federally managed fisheries are required to submit a Fishing Vessel Trip Report, or VTR, some fisheries like American lobster and Jonah crab do not have that requirement unless they are also landing a federally managed species. VTRs are a fairly reliable data source for lobster and Jonah crab revenue exposure, given that, according to the National Marine Fisheries Service, VTRs capture between 31% of Connecticut and 100% of Virginia and Maryland lobster landings between 2014 and 2019. Massachusetts and Rhode Island averaged 60 and 70% respectively over the same time period. VTR required vessels also landed between 18 and 100% of Jonah crabs in New England and the Mid-Atlantic. This table, which is Table 3.9-10 in the DEIS, provides a ranking of ports by revenue of fishing vessels in the lease area from 2008 through 2019, as well as the level of commercial fishing engagement and reliance of the community in which the port is located. 75% of the trips for fishing vessels that operate within the lease area originate from the Atlantic City, Cape May, and Sea Isle City ports in New Jersey. Atlantic City and Cape May have the highest values and landings of any ports, with respective totals of $1.651 million and $916,000 for 2008 through 2019. These two ports together contribute just over 67% of the total revenue for the lease area. Figures 3.9-5 through 3.9-9 from the DEIS include histograms generated from all National Marine Fisheries Service reported Vessel Monitoring System or VMS position reports broadcast within a certain area, in this case the Ocean Wind 1 project area, from 2014 to 2019, and represent most fishing and transit activity in the project area for fisheries with VMS requirements. The larger the bars in the histograms, the greater number of position reports within that 5-degree bin. The vessels are parsed into two speed categories, greater than or equal to 5 knots and less than 5 knots, representing transiting and fishing activity respectively. The figure here represents fishing activity for all VMS vessels in the project area. The 104 unique VMS vessels operating in the Ocean Wind 1 project area generally followed a northeast to southwest fishing pattern, dominated by the surf clam ocean quahog fleet. See Figure 3.9-9 in the DEIS for individual fishery histograms. In the context of other reasonably foreseeable environmental trends and planned actions, the incremental impacts of the proposed action would have a range of minor to major adverse impacts on commercial fisheries and for-hire recreational fishing. The major impact rating for some fisheries and fishing operations is primarily driven by regulated fishing efforts and climate change. Impacts could also include long-term minor beneficial impacts for some for-hire recreational fishing operations due to the artificial reef effect from the turbine foundations and scour protection. BOEM anticipates that the overall impacts associated with the proposed action, when combined with past, present, and reasonably foreseeable activities, would result in major impacts to commercial fishing and for-hire recreational fishing. BOEM determined this ranking because some commercial fisheries and fishing operations could experience substantial long-term disruptions. This impact rating is primarily driven by the presence of offshore structures, regulated fishing effort, and climate change. For more information regarding the analysis of impacts to commercial and for-hire recreational fisheries from the proposed action and action alternatives, please see Section 3.09, Commercial Fisheries and For-Hire Recreational Fishing, Appendix E, Project Design Envelope and Maximum Case Scenario, and Appendix F, Planned Activities Scenario. For additional information, please see the posters on potential impacts to commercial fishing, fishing density, and fishery landings, gear type, and VMS activity, all located on the virtual meeting webpage.